I spent my life saving $150,000 for security and freedom. In one evening, my family tried to take it all to pay for my brother's mistake. Have you ever had everything you worked for threatened by someone else's chaos? Share your story in the comments. Hit the like button and subscribe to see what happens next. My name is Eliza Hart. I am 30 years old. I have spent my whole adult life working very hard and saving money for my future. Ever since I was old enough to understand what money meant, I learned that if I wanted to be safe and independent, I would have to work hard and save every penny. After many years of careful saving, I had $150,000. That is a lot of money, and I earned every single dollar by myself. I never asked anyone for help. I didn't spend money on things I didn't need. I gave up small treats, fun dinners, and even little trips because I wanted to make sure I could have a safe future. I believed that all the hard work I did would give me freedom, independence, and security. I believed that one day, I could live my life the way I wanted, without having to depend on anyone. But one Sunday evening, everything I believed in was shaken. That night, we were having a family dinner. It was a calm evening at first. My parents were sitting at the table, and my brother Derek was joking about his day. Suddenly, Derek said something that made my stomach drop. He said he owed $100,000 in gambling debts. That is a huge amount of money, more than most people earn in several years. And then he asked me to give him all my savings. Not only that, he wanted me to sign papers for a mortgage so the bank would give him more money. He said, "It's for the family, Eliza," as if everything I worked for didn't matter. I felt shocked. I couldn't believe what he was asking. My own brother wanted me to give up my life savings and risk my future for him. I took a deep breath. I knew I could not do it. I told him, "No, my future is mine, not yours." At that moment, my parents turned on me. Their faces were angry and disappointed. My dad yelled, "You're letting us down." His face turned red, and his voice shook with anger. My mom's voice was cold, and her eyes were narrow. "Think about what this means for all of us," she said. Their words felt like knives cutting into my chest. I felt a wave of guilt wash over me, but deep down, I knew I had made the right choice. I couldn't give up my future. I couldn't risk everything I had worked for my entire adult life. My heart was pounding, but I held my ground and walked out of the room. I left their yelling and accusations behind me. 30 minutes later, my phone buzzed. It was a text message from my mom. It said, "Sign the mortgage papers for him or don't come back." The words stung. I felt like I had been punched in the chest, but I didn't waver. That night, my hands were shaking, and I felt nervous, but I locked every shared bank account they could possibly reach. I made sure my money was safe. By morning, my phone was flooded with 21 missed calls and dozens of angry messages. My parents were furious. They called me a traitor and said I had ruined everything. Their anger and disappointment pushed me to the very edge, forcing me to make choices that would change my life forever. I want to tell you about my childhood because that's where it all started. I grew up in a quiet suburb near Charlotte. From the outside, my family looked perfect. My dad was a sales manager. He wore sharp, clean shirts every day, and he liked to look professional. My mom worked as an accountant. She loved organizing things and keeping track of every penny. My brother, Derek, was 3 years older than me. My parents always focused on him first. To neighbors and friends, we seemed like a perfect middle-class family. We had a nice house, a minivan, and 2 children. People would say, "You have such a perfect family." But inside our house, things were different. I could feel it from a very young age. When I was a little girl, I loved school. Numbers and math were my favorite. They made sense to me when so many other things didn't. I liked the feeling of solving a problem, checking my answer, and knowing I was right. In 5th grade, I won a math award at a regional contest. I was so proud and excited. I wanted to show my parents immediately. But that day, Derek had a basketball game. My parents went to watch him instead. My mom spoke to me over the phone and said, "We'll look at it later, Eliza." But later never came. My certificate sat on the kitchen counter for weeks. That wasn't the first time I felt overlooked. Derek's games, school plays, and even average grades always got more attention. My parents praised him, helped him, and celebrated his achievements. I worked hard, but my wins barely mattered to them. I learned that if I wanted to feel proud and accomplished, I would have to do it for myself. By middle school, I stopped trying to get their approval. I focused on what I could control, my grades and my goals. I spent evenings in my room solving math problems or reading about saving money. I dreamed of a life where my choices mattered. Even at school fairs, I often went alone. I would walk through booths and listen to children laughing and families talking. I felt a little lonely, but I also felt proud that I could enjoy these things on my own. When I became a teenager, I wanted to earn my own money. I got a part-time job at a bookstore after school. The work was hard. I had to stack books, ring up customers, and carry heavy boxes. My first paycheck was $80, and I felt like I had won a treasure. I opened a savings account at the bank and put all the money I could into it. My manager at the bookstore noticed how responsible I was. She said, "You're so dependable." Her words made me happier than any words my parents had said. I learned that I could build something on my own. I didn't need anyone to notice me to feel proud of myself. Derek seemed to glide through life. Teachers liked him, he could skip homework, and my parents never scolded him. They would buy him basketball shoes, send him to camps, and help him with his whims. I didn't blame him. He grew up the way my parents raised him. But I knew that if I wanted to have a safe and secure future, I could only count on myself. All these experiences taught me how to be independent. I learned to set my own standards and measure my value by my actions, not by my parents' attention. By high school, I had learned to rely on myself completely. I worked hard in school and earned excellent grades. I wanted to go to college and build a life I could control. I spent late nights studying and planning my future. My hard work paid off when I won a full scholarship to UNC Charlotte. This scholarship meant I could study finance without having to borrow money or ask for help. Starting college felt like stepping into a new world. The campus was buzzing with opportunities, and I jumped right in. I studied finance because I loved numbers. Learning about investments and budgeting felt like solving a puzzle I had always wanted to solve. College was not free, though. Books, meals, and dorm fees cost a lot. I didn't want to ask anyone for money, so I got a part-time job at the university's finance office. I filed papers, updated spreadsheets, and worked hard every day. My coworkers noticed my dedication. One said, "You're relentless," laughing as I double-checked numbers over and over. That job taught me more than any textbook. I learned how to manage money and spend it wisely. After 4 years, I graduated with honors. I had no debt, and I had a degree in finance. I didn't take a break to celebrate. I was already looking for a job to start building my life. Charlotte had many finance jobs, and I got one as a junior financial analyst at a mid-sized company. I worked on budgets and numbers for big clients. My first paycheck was just over $2,000, and I felt proud. I opened a high-interest savings account and began saving even more money. My life became a routine of discipline. I tracked every dollar I spent and skipped things I didn't need. I cooked my own meals and saved money wherever I could. By my mid-20s, I had saved $50,000. I started investing in safe options like bonds and index funds. A senior coworker taught me about the stock Russellette. "Patience pays off," she said. I listened and kept my investments safe. I avoided debt completely. I bought a used car with my own money and avoided loans. My coworkers teased me and called me the budget queen, but I didn't mind. Every choice, every skipped coffee, every smart investment brought me closer to my goal. By my late 20s, I had saved $150,000. That money was more than numbers. It represented safety, freedom, and independence. I had built a life for myself without depending on anyone. I loved my work. I loved analyzing numbers, finding solutions, and helping clients. I spent hours making sure every report was perfect. My boss gave me bigger projects because of my careful work. I also took classes at night to learn more and read finance blogs to keep learning. Everything I did was to build my future, and I was proud of it. My life used to be simple. I worked hard, saved money, and invested carefully. I didn't want to be rich to show off. I just wanted a safe future I could control. Looking back, those years were about proving that I could take care of myself. Every late night at work, every dollar I saved, every new skill I learned, was a small step toward a future I could manage on my own. I didn't know then that all my careful planning would soon be tested, but I was ready for whatever came my way. One Sunday evening, I went to my parents' house for our usual monthly family dinner. Everything seemed normal at first. Mom had made her famous roasted chicken, the kind that smells amazing as soon as you walk in. Dad was telling his usual stories about work, and the sound of plates clinking filled the room. I settled into my favorite chair at the table, expecting the same small talk we always had. But tonight something felt different. The air in the room felt heavy, like something bad was about to happen, even though I couldn't see it yet. Derek, my brother, sat across from me. Usually, he had a big, silly smile on his face, always joking or teasing. But tonight, his smile was gone. His fingers tapped nervously on the table, and he kept looking down at his plate. Mom and Dad glanced at each other, their faces tight with worry. I could feel that something serious was coming. I had a sinking feeling in my stomach before anyone said a single word. Halfway through dinner, Derek leaned forward. His voice was low and serious. "I need your help," he said. His eyes were fixed on me, and I could see fear and desperation in them. "I owe $100,000 from some bad bets. I need your savings to pay it off, and I need you to co-sign a mortgage for me." His words hit me like a punch in the chest. My savings, $150,000, built carefully over years, flashed in my mind. I gripped my fork, my hand shaking slightly, and said firmly, "No, that money is for my future. I can't give it to you." Derek's face darkened. His jaw tightened, and his eyes flashed with anger. "This is serious," he said. "This is my last chance to fix everything." Dad's voice became sharp and cold. "You are part of this family. We help each other," he said. Mom nodded, her voice softer but still insistent. "Family comes first," she said. "You have the means to help him. You need to do this." I shook my head. My stomach was twisting. I had spent years building my financial security, tracking every dollar, avoiding debt, and making careful choices. Handing it over to Derek, who had made reckless decisions for years, felt like throwing everything away. "I worked too hard for that money," I said, my voice steady even though I felt my chest heat up with anger. "I won't risk my future for his mistakes." The room went silent. Derek slammed his hand down on the table, rattling the plates. "You're selfish," he shouted. "You think you're better than us, don't you?" Mom gasped and reached for his arm, but he pulled away quickly. Dad leaned forward, his face red with frustration. "You're letting your brother drown," he said quietly, but with strong accusation. I pushed my chair back with a scraping sound against the floor. "I'm not responsible for his debts," I said. "He made those choices, not me." Mom's voice broke through, cold and final. "If you won't help, you're choosing yourself over family," she said. Her words stung, but I didn't waver. My hand was shaking as I stood. "I'm choosing my future," I said, locking eyes with her. The room felt heavy with judgment. I grabbed my coat and headed for the door. Derek called after me, his voice full of bitterness. "You'll regret this." I didn't look back. As I drove home, my phone buzzed. A text from Mom appeared. "Sign the papers or don't come back." My heart sank, but not because I doubted my choice. Her words felt like a betrayal. I had spent years building my independence, and they wanted to tear it all down for Derek's mistakes. I pulled into my apartment complex parking lot. My mind was racing, but I knew one thing for sure. No one would touch my savings. I had worked too hard and sacrificed too much to give it away now. Their words, family duty, guilt, loyalty, echoed in my mind, but they couldn't change my decision. Sitting on my couch, I replayed the night over and over in my head. Derek's desperate pleading, Dad's anger, Mom's cold text. They had tried to guilt me into helping. But I wasn't a teenager anymore. I was a woman who had built her life dollar by dollar, choice by choice. Their demand wasn't about family. It was about control. The pain of their betrayal was sharp and raw, but underneath it, a fire burned inside me. I was done bending to their expectations. My savings and my future were mine to protect, and I wasn't going to let anyone take that away. The next morning, my phone was flooded with missed calls and texts, 21 in total. Dad's name flashed first with a voicemail. "You're being selfish," he said, his voice tight with frustration. "Your brother needs you, and you're turning your back on us." I deleted the message. My chest felt tight, but I didn't feel guilty. More messages kept coming. Mom's texts were relentless, each one heavier than the last. "Family sacrifices for each other," one read. "You're breaking us apart," said another. Each word felt like a weight pressing down on me. Then I noticed something worse. An email alert from my bank pinged. Someone had tried to log into an old shared account I hadn't touched in years. My heart raced. The account was a relic from my teenage years, once linked to Derek for family expenses. I logged in, my hands shaking, and saw the timestamps, late last night, just hours after I had left my parents' house. Derek, I thought, clenching my jaw. He had always been reckless, but this was a new low. I quickly changed the password, turned on two-factor authentication, and locked every account I owned. My savings and my future were mine alone, and I wasn't letting anyone near them. Needing air, I called my best friend, Sophie, and we met at a quiet little cafe downtown. The smell of coffee was comforting and grounding. I told her everything, pouring out my story from the start of dinner to the storm of calls and messages the next morning. Sophie listened quietly, her eyes steady, her hand resting on mine. "You've worked too hard to let them take this from you," she said softly. "Your savings are your safety net, not their solution." Her words felt like a lifeline cutting through the fog of guilt. She didn't push me to do anything. She didn't judge. She just sat with me. "You're stronger than they think," she added, squeezing my hand. I nodded, feeling a small spark of courage in my chest. Later that day, my cousin Vivian texted me. "Derek has been in debt before," she wrote. "He drained Aunt Clara's savings and borrowed from Uncle Russell. They didn't tell you because they thought it would upset you." My stomach churned. Derek's gambling wasn't new. It was a pattern, and my parents had helped him before. Vivian's warning opened my eyes. My family wasn't just asking for help. They were expecting me to clean up a mess they had helped create. The calls and texts didn't stop. Dad left another voicemail, his tone colder this time. "You're tearing this family apart," he said, echoing Mom's earlier words. Mom sent another text. "Think about what you're doing to us." I felt trapped, caught between their expectations and my need to protect myself. I had spent years building independence, from my first paycheck at the bookstore to my career as an analyst. Giving in now would unravel everything I had worked for. But the pressure was suffocating. Their voices, constant and loud, beat in my mind. I stared at my laptop, my bank accounts now locked safely behind new passwords. I thought about Sophie's words, Vivian's warning, and the life I had built. My home, once my safe place, felt like a cage closing in. For the first time, I let myself imagine leaving. I imagined starting fresh somewhere new, where I could make my own choices, and no one could pull me back into chaos. The idea was scary, but it made something inside me spark. I wasn't ready to decide yet, but just thinking about it made me feel alive. I had fought too hard to let anyone drag me back into their mess. Whatever came next, I would face it on my own terms. By Wednesday, the family's demands were suffocating. My phone buzzed again, not just calls or texts this time. Derek had taken to social media. He posted a long rant, accusing me of abandoning the family. "She's got the money, but she won't help her own brother," he wrote, full of anger and resentment. The post spread quickly. Relatives and old neighbors I hadn't spoken to in years called me cold, selfish, and disloyal. "How could you let your family suffer?" One wrote. My stomach twisted as I read the words. I didn't respond. Engaging would only make the situation worse. That afternoon, there was a sharp knock at my apartment door. I opened it to find Dad and Mom standing there, their faces grim. "We need to talk," Dad said, brushing past me without waiting for an invitation. Mom followed, her eyes red, clutching a folder of papers. They sat on my couch. Dad slid the documents toward me. "You need to co-sign this mortgage for Derek's debt," he said. "It's the only way to save him." Mom's voice trembled. "We're family. We stick together no matter what," she said. I stared at the papers, my heart pounding. My savings, my years of hard work, flashed before me. "I can't do this," I said, pushing the folder away. "I won't jeopardize my future." Dad's face turned red. "You're ungrateful," he snapped. "We raised you, gave you everything, and now you turn your back on us." Mom reached for my hand, her voice pleading. "Please, for the sake of our family, don't tear us apart." Her words stung, but I pulled my hand away. "This isn't about family," I said, my voice steady. "It's about Derek's choices, not mine." The room went very quiet. Everyone looked angry and upset. Dad pointed at me. "You'll regret this," he said, then stormed out. Mom followed him, her shoulders drooping. I sat alone. The silence was heavy, almost like a thick blanket pressing down on me. I felt small and alone, but also confused. Why was it always my job to fix everything? Then my phone pinged. It was an email from my friend Ethan. He had just moved to a financial company in Austin. His email said, "We're hiring senior analysts. The job pays more money, helps with moving, and is a fresh start. You'd be perfect for this." I read the email 2 times. My heart started to beat faster. Austin was far away from Charlotte, far from all the fighting, far from my family's constant demands. The job offered almost double the money I made now, and there was extra money to help me move. I leaned back in my chair and let myself dream a little. It felt like someone had thrown me a life jacket while I was drowning in stress. Late that night, my phone rang. It was Derek. I hesitated, then answered. "You're betraying us," he shouted angrily. "You think you're better than us, don't you? Running away with your money while I'm drowning." I took a deep breath and stayed calm. "I'm not your solution, Derek," I said. You made this mess. Fix it yourself. He shouted more, but I hung up. I was done being blamed for everything. I realized I didn't have to carry their problems anymore. I could finally make a choice for myself. By morning, I had made my decision. I replied to Ethan, accepting the Austin job. It wasn't easy. Leaving Charlotte meant leaving my apartment, my routines, and everything I had known. But it also meant freedom. A life where my money and my future belonged to me. I started looking at apartments in Austin. I imagined new streets, new buildings, and a fresh start. My family's angry words still echoed in my mind, but they didn't control me anymore. I had built my life on my own terms, and I was ready for a new chapter. 2 weeks later, I stepped off the plane in Austin. The warm air felt so different from the heavy air of Charlotte. I had packed light, leaving behind old problems and worries. My new job with Ethan at a bright, modern office downtown was waiting for me. The office was busy, full of glass walls and open desks. People were checking numbers and talking about money and investments. I started as a senior analyst, checking numbers carefully to help clients save and grow their money. My first project was helping a tech startup plan their budget better. Ethan was happy. "You're a natural," he said, patting me on the shoulder. I felt proud. Each day I got better at my work. I felt more confident with every spreadsheet, chart, and presentation I completed. Outside of work, Austin felt alive. I met my coworker Nina at a team party. She laughed a lot and was easy to talk to. She invited me to a food truck festival by Ladybird Lake. The place was full of lights, music, and yummy smells. We shared tacos and drinks, laughed together, and had a really fun evening. "This city has a heartbeat," Nina said as we walked through the busy festival. I started joining more fun events with her. We went to art walks, music nights, and even small local fairs. I felt like I belonged somewhere for the first time in years. It felt like the city itself was welcoming me. I started thinking of Austin as my home. But even with all this fun and excitement, I knew I needed to heal from the past. I started talking to Dr. Celia Monroe, a kind and smart therapist. Her office looked over the Colorado River. She had a calm voice, sharp eyes, and always made me feel safe. In our sessions, I said, I started untangling the guilt and pressure from my family. They made me feel responsible for their problems. "They made you feel responsible for their choices," Dr. Monroe said calmly. "You are allowed to choose yourself. You don't have to carry their mistakes." Her words helped me see that my family's demands, Derek's debts and mom and dad's pressure, were ways they tried to control me. Every session made me feel lighter. I began to forgive myself for leaving and for saying no to being their solution. One evening, my friend Sophie called from Charlotte. "How's Austin treating you?" she asked happily. We talked about my new routine, the office, the festivals, and my little apartment with a view of downtown. "You sound happy," she said, laughing when I told her about Nina and the food trucks. It was a simple, happy call. I liked that I could still talk to friends without being trapped by family. It reminded me that I could stay connected to people I cared about without letting them control me. Then I got a text from Vivian Stark. "Derek's gambling had gotten worse. He's in deeper debt now. Your parents remortgaged their house to help him, but they're struggling with payments." I felt sad but not guilty. My parents had chosen to help Derek again, and now they were in trouble. I had warned them, but they didn't listen. I typed a short reply. "Thanks for letting me know." I set my phone down. I had protected my savings and my future. Their problems were theirs to handle. Austin was becoming home. On weekends, I hiked trails at Zilker Park. The city skyline shimmered in the distance. I explored new streets, small cafes, and local shops. I felt alive. At work, I took on bigger projects, helped new analysts, and led meetings. Dr. Monroe's advice helped me focus on the present, not the past. Nina even dragged me to a salsa dancing class. At first, I was terrible at the steps, and we kept bumping into each other, but we laughed until our sides hurt. These moments, friends, work, fun, together made a life that felt truly mine. 6 months later, I stood on my balcony, looking at the sparkling city lights. Cutting off my family had been hard, but it was necessary. Their demands and Derek's debts had once trapped me in guilt. Now, in Austin, I feel free. My days were full of purpose. My job was going well. My friendships were growing. I was building a life that matched my values. A text from Vivian brought news from home. Derek was in serious trouble. Creditors were suing him, and my parents were struggling to keep their house. The words stung, but I didn't feel guilty. I had warned them and refused to fix their mistakes. Now they faced the results of their choices. I replied, they made their choices. Then I found a new purpose. I started volunteering at a community center, teaching teenagers about money. Every Saturday, I stood in front of a group of high schoolers and taught them about budgeting, saving, and avoiding debt. They asked questions about college, saving, and smart spending. Helping them made me feel proud. It felt like I was helping a younger version of myself. One girl, Lila, thanked me after class. "I want to be in control like you," she said. Her words stayed with me. I realized my journey could inspire others. I learned that setting boundaries isn't selfish, it's survival. Protecting my savings and future was hard, but the right choice. True family doesn't make you give up your worth. They support you and respect your limits. My parents and Derek wanted me to fix their mistakes, but I chose myself. That choice built a life I am proud of. Austin taught me I could succeed without their approval. My value isn't tied to their needs. I had finally built a life where I felt truly happy. Over the months, I discovered new hobbies. I joined a weekend yoga class by the river. I explored little coffee shops where baristas remembered my name. I made a small garden on my balcony with herbs and flowers. Every morning, I watered the plants and felt proud of how they grew just like me. At work, I got even better at helping clients with their money. I taught a new junior analyst how to read numbers carefully and plan smart budgets. Ethan noticed my progress. "You're becoming a great leader," he said, smiling. I felt proud that I could help others grow too. Sometimes I thought about Charlotte. I remembered the fights, the blaming, and the heavy expectations. But I also remembered the small moments of love and care. I realized I could love my family without letting them control me. My home was in Austin now, not just the city, but in my heart. I had a safe, happy life that I built with my own hands. I also learned that friends could become family too. Nina became my closest friend. We explored every corner of the city together, tried new foods, and laughed at silly mistakes. Sophie still called sometimes, and her voice reminded me of the past, but it didn't pull me back. Teaching at the community center became my favorite part of the week. I could see the students' eyes light up when they understood something new. I loved helping them dream bigger than I had dared. Every question they asked, every idea they shared, reminded me that I had the power to shape my life, and maybe theirs too. Looking back, I understood that leaving Charlotte was the hardest choice I had ever made. But it was the right one. I was free from guilt, free from pressure, and free to be myself. My life in Austin wasn't perfect, but it was mine. And for the first time, I felt truly proud of what I had built. Austin has given me independence, friendship, purpose, and peace. I had learned that life isn't about fixing everyone else's mistakes. It's about taking care of yourself, following your dreams, and helping others only when you can, without losing yourself. I had found that balance, and it felt amazing. And every night, when I looked at the city lights from my balcony, I smiled. I made it. I had built a home, a life, and a future that was mine. I was finally happy, strong, and free.